Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing a book haul. I have acquired a few books over the last couple of months and I thought I would let you know what I have coming up on my potential TBR. Some of these were gifted. A huge thank you to anybody who sent me a book, whether it was a publisher or an author themselves or one of my patrons. Just huge thank you. It's never expected, but it's always hugely appreciated whenever I get something in the post. And with that in mind, let's jump in. Hey everybody, bringing you today's sponsor for this video. We have My Paper Quest, and this time they sent me their horror selection. My Paper Quest is a subscription service. This time I got Orchid of Skeletons by Ellie Wilde. And I really love the cover of this book, and feel free to read the blurb if you want to, but it sounds super creepy. Definitely one I'm going to read when it's a rainy day. Then we have the second book I was sent, and that is Necrotown by Alexander Nader. I really love the cover of this book. To be honest, I love the covers of all of these books, and this one I believe has kind of got religious undertones and also some supernatural undertones as well. I will put all the information as it relates to My Paper Quest in the description below. Definitely check them out. They have some really cool books upcoming and you will be supporting self-published authors. Thank you, My Paper Quest. Now onto the video. The first book is These Deathless Shores by P.H. Lowe, and this is being published by Angry Robot Books, who also happened to send me a copy of the book. This is a book that I'm really intrigued by. I think there is some religious thematic work in this book. I think it's also about Captain Hook and it's about his origin story, but it's like an alternative origin story from what I understand, which as somebody who watched Peter Pan when I was younger and loved Peter Pan when I was younger and still even as an adult, I'm always curious to read retellings of this story that I love so much. So I'm very excited for that. That is an arc and I believe it's coming out in May or June. Next up, we have Priest of Crowns by Peter McLean. This is the fourth and final book of the War for the Rose Throne series. I finished this series at the end of last year and I didn't have the final book, so naturally I bought it. Great series, definitely recommend it if you want something that's short, snappy, and has a good plot and interesting characters. Then we have the paperback version of The Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I love the paperback version of Empire of the Vampire. It's white with gold embossing on it. It's absolutely stunning. I wish they did have a hardback version of it, but they don't. But it's okay because I actually prefer paperback in general anyway. So I finally bought it, especially given that the second book has come out. And that brings me on to the next book that I bought, and that is Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff. This came out on the 29th of February. So depending on when this comes out, you know, it's come out recently. And I have started it at the time of recording this video and I am loving it so much so far. Let's hope it keeps up. Then we have Gorman Gas by Mervyn Peake. Now I thought Gorman Gas was the first book in this trilogy, given that the trilogy is called the Gorman Gas trilogy. So I thought naturally, okay, the first book is probably going to be called Gorman Gas. I was wrong and it's the second book in the trilogy. So I ended up buying the second book by accident because Mervyn Peake is an author I've been wanting to read for quite a while. I've heard great things about this series. I've heard amazing things about the writing and I believe it's quite gothic. I could be wrong. Someone please correct me if you have read it. But regardless, this is a series that I'm going to get to in the next year or two. I haven't bought the first book yet, but I will naturally do so in the coming months. Then we have a book that was sent to me by an author, and this is a self-published author that I've talked about on my channel before, and that is A Heart Full of Malice from Tony DeBeo. Tony, thank you for sending this to me. This is the second book in his trilogy, the first book being In the Shadow of Ruin. I did a review of this book. I absolutely loved it. It's African inspired. It's very political. There's lots of battles. It's about basically like a family drama, but the impact that that has on the greater world. And that is the sort of story that I love. I really liked the first book and Tony has just published the second book and I'm so excited to get to it in the coming months. Next up, we have The Incorruptibles by John Horner-Jacobs. I initially thought this was a standalone, but it's actually a trilogy. And I've heard really good things about this kind of Western fantasy series. And I love a good Western and I love a good fantasy series. So when you combine the two, you're basically quids in. And so I'm very excited to get to this one. I have heard that the series kind of goes a bit downhill after book 2, but I'm definitely going to read book 1 because I've heard really, really good things about it. Then we have a classic, and that is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This is definitely going to be the first Dostoevsky book that I'm going to read first. It's pretty palatable. I think it's about 500 pages, which compared to some of Dostoevsky's and the other Russian authors' books, which, you know, tend to be kind of 1,000 plus pages, this one seems quite palatable. And I have a translation that was strongly recommended to me as well. So I'm very excited to get to this definitely this year, because it's criminal that I have not read Dostoevsky yet. Next up, we have From the Valley of Orchids by Neil Saunders. This is a book that a friend of mine recommended to me. It's like ancient Japan inspired from what I understand. And the covers are absolutely stunning. They are some of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen. And I'm really excited to get into this series. I do believe it is self-published. I think it's about 7 or 8 books already. I don't know how long the series is going to be, but I've heard that they're quite good books to read in between much longer books if you need something to kind of get you going. And I'm just so psyched to read this series, and I'm definitely going to start it this year. Next up, we have a sci-fi book, and that is China Mountain Jang by Maureen McHugh. This was a book recommended to me by one of you folks. Thank you, Raf, I believe it was. This is a book that is set in a future where China, I believe that this is a kind of dystopian sci-fi where China is essentially the superpower, and from what I understand, I think there's kind of like some cyberpunky elements to it. It's the sort of book, it's the sort of sci-fi book in particular that I'm really loving at the moment, and I'm really, really excited to get to it probably next month. Can't wait. And I believe it's also a standalone. Then we have Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher. Finally, I have purchased this book for myself. I've purchased it for like 2 or 3 other people. One of my subscribers also sent me the audio book version of it because he's dying for me to read this book. And then I thought, you know what would be really cool is to do like a full immersive read, listen to the audiobook whilst reading it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Finally purchased it, and I'm definitely going to start reading it this year. Next up, we have a book that I bought when I was on my travels, and that was Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for years, but I've kind of been on the fence about, just given the nature of what this book is about, but I'm going to give it a go. There's very few things that are kind of off topic for me. There are very few things that I won't read. I'm always willing to give something a go, but I think I'm particularly interested about this one because Nabokov himself has said this is kind of like a cautionary tale, which I think is interesting, and I'm very, very curious to read it. Next up, we have The Trials of Empire by Richard Swan, and this is the Goldsboro edition, and I bought the previous 2 ones, and so obviously I thought I'd get the full set, and it's very beautiful, and the set is beautiful, and Goldsboro did a really good job of this series. Then we have Clara and the Sun by Katsuo Ishiguro. So Katsuo Ishiguro is obviously a Japanese author and probably one of the most well-known Japanese authors in the West. Never read any of his stuff, and so I thought, you know what, I kind of have to. So I thought I'd start with Clara and the Sun because I've heard good things about that one. I have heard he employs a lot of magical realism, which is something that I don't typically enjoy, but I'm going to give it a go. We'll see what happens. Then I got A Song for Abon by Guy Gavriel Kay. I've already read it. It's amazing, and that's all I'm going to say because you should wait for my review. Then I bought A Stranger in Alandria by Sophia Samatar. This is a book that myself and one of my patrons are going to read at some point during the summer. I've heard it's all about like merchants, wheeling and dealing, there's lots of politics. That is like one of my favorite things to read in my books, and so I'm very, very excited to get to that. I also believe it's a standalone, so not a big series that I have to commit to. Then I bought June 3, 4, 5 and 6. I got the ebook editions because that is a series that I really want to continue. They were all on offer, so I thought, you know what, let's get them. I don't know if I'm actually going to read 3, 4, 5 and 6. I've been told to definitely read 3 and 4. Let me know if I should read past 4 because I'm not really sure, to be honest. I've heard it gets pretty bad after a certain point. I just can't remember which point it is. Let me know down below in the comments if you have an opinion. Then I got A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. So Hafsa Faizal, she wrote a YA duology a couple of years back that I really wanted to read, but I'd heard really bad things about it. The main thing that I found really appealing about it was that it was set in the Middle East, but at that time I wasn't really into YA, or I was starting to get out of reading YA, and I'd also heard that the writing wasn't that great. But I believe this is her first adult fantasy book, and I've heard really good things about it, and I think it just came out, so I'm very, very excited to read that naturally. Then I got Tokyo Ueno Station by Yumuri, which is obviously a Japanese kind of contemporary fiction book about a couple of people living in Tokyo, and it's about their lives and how they're dealing with the daily stresses of life. It's the sort of stuff that I love, so naturally I am going to pick that up. Then I got another Japanese book, which was Emiko in Real Life by Emiko Jean. I believe this is semi-autobiographical. I know nothing about this book apart from the fact that I really like the sound of the back. And again, it's all about this, I believe, young woman who is just struggling with life, and it's about her figuring that out. Again, the sort of stuff that I love. Then I got a Korean book, and that is I Want to Die, but I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Baek Sihi. And this is a book that I saw the cover of, and I saw tteokbokki on it, which is a kind of very quintessential Korean dish. And I've tried it a couple of times, and I actually really enjoy it. And I thought that just sounds really funny, and I kind of want to read it. Again, I think it's like a contemporary, almost quite philosophical book about this person who's kind of trying to get through life. That, again, that's the sort of stuff I like now and then. The last book I got was Vagabonds by Hao Jingfang. This is a book that I've been really wanting to read for a while. When somebody on Twitter recommended it to me, really loved the look of the cover, but more importantly, I really love the sound of the kind of thematic work in the book. I believe this is also just a standalone. I could be wrong, but I believe it's just a standalone, and I'm definitely going to get to that this summer. And there we have it. Those are all the books that I have either purchased myself or got over the last few months. I did buy a few non-fiction books as well, but I think I might do all my non-fiction stuff kind of separately, if that makes sense. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I thought I would reserve that for another video going forward. I hope you like this video. Let me know if you purchased any books in the last few months, and if there's any that you're particularly excited for, and I'll see you in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.